Mr. Snyder?
Well, Mr. Newman and Mr. Freeze have both touched on this, but and we've concentrated a lot on discussing how the 65th Street interchange will help open up that area for some potential development coming in there. But I would say, unlike the 40th and 48th Street south interchanges, this is going into an area that already is heavily populated, already has congestion on existing infrastructure in there. This project will be one that will help alleviate. It's not a single solution. It's not going to fix all of the problems, but it will contribute to fixing those problems. And I would hate to see us just scrap this idea totally.
And I guess I would concur in the fact that when we built 40th and 48th, it was almost like if you build it, they will come. In this instance, I think it's been built, and now we've got to go help out the congestion. Mr. Wojak?
And some of the points that both staff and Mr. Snyder are making, I'll concede those points as well. That and part of the reason why I'm very supportive of this being in the sales tax proposal is I do believe there's going to be a time where this is appropriate, but I'm a little bit concerned about the fast tracking. Well, my jaw just about dropped when I read about how this thing was moving forward in the Post Bulletin without having any knowledge of the discussions going on. And what I want to do though is I want to make sure the taxpayers get the best deal possible, because we're talking about a whole lot of subsidies for this interchange that are going to benefit a lot of people, but not the taxpayers. And I want, if we're going to be sinking this kind of money in there, I want to make sure the taxpayers are getting a fair deal, which I don't believe we got on 40th and 48th Street.
What kind of subsidies are you referring to, so the people in the audience know?
Absolutely. Currently, if we set up a TID, which I assume would be there's no guarantee that we're going to do that, but if we did that, still the taxpayers would be covering 25% of the capital cost of the construction on there. I'd like to see that at 0%, quite frankly. And in addition, there's also been some mention in conversations with staff about whether or not we'd be building the sewer pipe and/or the lift station potentially to be operating up there. That could potentially be a taxpayer price. We've already identified that particularly the sewer and water fees don't actually cover the cost of investment in those properties as well. And then there's the additional complication that tax revenues generated from the types of development that potentially would be opened up there don't actually cover their cost of operations, which is what we've seen in other parts of the cities that have been more sprawled out. We can mitigate a lot of these concerns by putting the right policies in place. We can certainly address some of the sprawl issues with appropriate zoning and smart planning. But we haven't done any of that at this point, and that's why my concern is with this going forward at this point until we actually mitigate some of that.
Mr. Newman?
If you want to delay this, I'm not hearing any objection from the Public Works Department, but I would suggest that before you get in too deep on this topic, you actually review the transportation analysis that was done that works on this whole corridor, because eventually our intent was to apply for more than just city funding for the improvements in this area, because 55th Street is going to take a lot more improvements than we're going to have here locally, and we want to keep our options open from our perspective to try and maximize other dollars besides just the city dollars or sales tax dollars that go in.
Well, and I think Mr. Freeze brings up a good point, the fact that we spent a lot of money on analyzing this whole corridor, the whole northwest part of Rochester, and if we don't eventually move forward with this project, which I think is absolutely necessary for our continued growth, but it will also alleviate a lot of congestion on 55th, which is a huge problem today, and it's only going to get worse. Mr. Quenville?
I might also mention that Senator Senjum is in the process of seeking some additional funding for this interchange, and I would hope that this current discussion does not forestall that initiative that is being undertaken right now.
Because eventually, Mr. Freeze, we're going to have to do this study anyway, correct?
Well,
as growth continues to the northwest?
What's before you tonight in D16 is not a study. It's the actual preparation of the design drawings and the specifications that allow the project to be built.
Okay. All right, what do you want to do, folks? Mr. Bilderback?
I just want to, I mentioned this last time we had this discussion a couple weeks ago. The concern I have is to make sure that 65th doesn't turn into some of the messes that we've had on 55th. And I think I appreciate Mr. Snyder and yourself, Mr. Hanson, speaking about the fact that this will alleviate some of the issues. But also knowing as Rochester continues to grow, we're going to be putting those pressures back on that road. So my concern is that my hope is that we take a very close look at this to make sure that whatever we come up with, we're not going to run into the same problems we have today.
Well, we've got frontage roads on both sides of the highway on that one anyway. That's one thing we didn't do last time, before our time, just so you folks know. All right, what do you want to do?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, could I have a second?
Second it.
Motion by Snyder, second by Means. Ms. Means,
I was
comment?
thinking it's not only the congestion, but I think it's a real safety issue as well. And I think it's timely, and I think we should move forward with it.
All right, any other comments?
I guess,
Ruska?
I think we had some discussion about taking a look at this a little bit more, and I don't see what that would hurt, so at this point, without doing that, I guess I'm just gonna probably vote against this with the idea that I would like to see us take a little bit more look at some of the other aspects of it, but,
How long have we been dealing with 65th Street, Mr. Freeze?
Staff first began discussions with MinDOT in 1997.
All right. All right, any other comments? I have a motion and a second.
I would
Yes.
just quickly add that, I'm not opposed to bringing this back up in a month or so, but when we're talking about over $500,000, I think a committee of the whole to really get some facts out on the table is appropriate.
All right. Anyone else? All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Judy, would you do roll call on that, please?
Council members Bilderback,
Nay.
Ruska,
nay.
Means,
Yes.
Snyder,
Aye.
Staver,
Nay.
Wojciech,
Nay.
and President Hansen.
Aye, aye, aye. It failed 4-3. All right, so will you schedule that for committee of the whole meeting in the near future, probably within the next month, Mr. Quenvold?
Do we need a motion on this?
Yes.
Motion to table, indefinitely.
All right, I have a motion by Wojciech, second by Snyder. All those in favor to
No,
table?
by Staver.
Oh, by Staver, I'm sorry. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? What'd you do?
Nay.
Oh, you're a nay, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. I read that 5-2, Snyder and Means voting nay.